Welcome in for another episode of the Silver and Blue Podcast. I'm your host, Nate Sanchez. Joining me is my co-host, Corey Douglas. Corey, we're recording this Friday afternoon as we get together to preview the Cowboys-Texans. I believe it's Week 14. The Cowboys-Texans Week 14 matchup. How are we feeling on this Friday afternoon, Corey?
No, we're feeling good going into a game where it's kind of been hard to kind of prepare for this game because the Texans are really bad. And they got some injuries that came out today where some guys are going to be out. But I'm doing great. Looking forward to Sunday.
Yeah, me too, me too. I'm really looking forward to this weekend. For those of you that watch on YouTube, I'm not wearing my typical Cowboys attire. I'm wearing my gold Mizzou shirt. We play, we actually play our big rival. Those of you that follow college basketball know that Mizzou and Kansas is a very heated rivalry, and they actually play in Columbia tomorrow for the first time in 10 years since Mizzou left the SEC. So it's an exciting time where I'm at, but we're not here to talk Mizzou hoops. We're here to talk some Cowboys football. Let's take a look at the injury report though. Like you said, the Texans are really bad, and on top of that, they're really banged up. They're coming in at 1-10-1. And I don't have my hands on the Friday injury report yet. Maybe I missed it on Twitter, but I'm looking at the Thursday report, and we got DNPs on Wednesday and Thursday by top 5 pick Derek Stingley. Kaimi Fairbairn, their kicker, was limited. Brandon Cooks appears to have checked out on this team after he wasn't traded at the deadline. Nico Collins was a DNP. Malik Collins, former Cowboy, was out Wednesday, but was back on Thursday. They're just really banged up across the board. This is a really bad Texans defense, and honestly, this is a game where Dallas should be able to take advantage. And then, Dallas on the Dallas injury front, the only one of note is Anthony Brown, who we now know is lost for the season. Jaron Kearse, DeMarcus Lawrence, all limited. Kelvin Joseph and Sam Williams were DNPs on Wednesday with an illness. Looks like that same bug still kind of going around the locker room, but they were back on Thursday. So Dallas, besides at cornerback, is relatively healthy. The other big news that we got this week, which I don't know that we discussed much on when we talked on Monday, was Tyron Smith being back. He's not expected to play, but Tyron Smith did start practicing this week. I think the word on the street is he won't be back for the Texans game, but he might be back for the Jaguars game.
Jacksonville, yep.
And then one more bit of injury news, and I'll let you go ahead, Corey, is sounds like James Washington, the much-awaited debut of James Washington in a Cowboys uniform is supposed to be this weekend. With all the Odell Beckham drama going on, it doesn't seem super likely anymore that Odell's going to be a Cowboy, at least at this point, in my opinion. We're going to see what we got in James Washington, and he's been getting talked up by his teammates, and I don't know what else you would expect them to do, but looks like we're finally going to get to see James Washington this week.
Yeah, I think that's definitely exciting just to kind of see what he brings to this offense. Obviously, he's known for being a down the field threat, hit some home run plays. I don't expect him to be used in a huge capacity as far as being out there on the field a lot, but I think him coming out there, and if the defense is sleep out there, he can run right by you for 6. Tyron Smith, though, I'm really surprised that this is actually coming to fruition. I know Zeke said he looked really sharp in practice, and he wouldn't be surprised if some of the defensive linemen had some bruises on their chest due to just how physical he came back. And I know DeMarcus Lawrence said he looks ready to go, so I'm excited for that next week, hopefully, assuming everything goes smoothly. And then I was just looking through Houston. It doesn't look like an official injury report is out yet, but Aaron Wilson, one of the best Houston Texans writers, he did say that Nico Collins, Cooks, and Stingley are all expected to miss Sunday. He said that this morning, so I think we can anticipate them being without 3 of really their best players. Nico Collins is a rookie guy who has really stepped up and stepped into a role as a rookie receiver with some shaky quarterback play, which we're definitely going to get to obviously during this show. But there's just not a lot of talent there on the Houston Texans team. And then when you take away those 3 players, it gets even, it gets even more ugly.
Yeah, looking at the Texans right now, it just seems like a perfect storm of bad ownership, bad coaching, and just bad team. And so, right now it's looking like they're going to they have some draft capital coming with their trade with the Browns for Deshaun Watson that's coming to fruition starting, I believe, this year. And going forward, they have a treasure trove of draft picks coming. They're probably going to have the number one pick. So they're going to have their pick of who their quarterback of the future is, because it appears that the quarterback of the future is not currently on their roster, be it Kyle Allen or Davis Mills.
Not at all.
But yeah, just looking at the Texans' numbers this year, I mean, it's no secret they're terrible. They're again 1-10-1 coming in, and that's with a week 1 tie. So in the last 11 weeks, they're they're 1-10, and it's just a lot of red when you look at their per game numbers. They're 31st in points a game, 32nd in yards a game, 27th in pass yards a game, 30th in rush yards a game. It's just not pretty. Their offense is pretty terrible. Their defense isn't horrific, but it's definitely not good. They're 26 in yards, 10th in passing defense. But that probably has a lot to do with the fact that they're trailing all the time. And then they're 32nd in rush defense. So the Texans are really bad across the board. Again, they're 26 in yards per game. So they're giving up 378 yards per game. It's just not good. And, they have some pieces on defense. I really like Derek Stingley, but they've gotten so banged up as the years gone on. Like, they already weren't that great to begin with. And then, what they had has just gotten worse and worse as the years progressed. So it's just a really rough roster when you look at what Houston's going to roll out there Sunday. And it's no surprise when you look at the spread in Vegas right now, it's no surprise that Dallas is favored by 3 scores. I believe it's currently sitting at 17.5 last I saw, which is, I might be forgetting one, but that's got to be the biggest spread of the NFL season.
One of the year.
It's got to be the biggest one. It's honestly the biggest one I've seen since, if you remember, the 2019 season when the Cowboys started 3-0 and were rolling teams, and the Dolphins started terribly. The Cowboys were favored by 23 in that game, so not quite to that level, but this is a pretty massive spread. And when you dig a little deeper into the numbers and injury situations, it's not really a surprise.
Yeah, I mean, this is a game where I'd kind of be disappointed if we don't see Cooper Rush for the majority of the fourth quarter. This is a game where this is a get right game. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I mean, this is CeeDee Lamb should be able to fluff his numbers up. Tony Pollard and Zeke should be able to get in there and get some action. I want to see Malik Davis get in there in the fourth quarter, and get some run. But overall, like you said, this Houston team is just they are a complete just mess. It kind of all started with the Deshaun Watson thing and how that transpired, and having to get rid of him, and they just can't recover from him. Now they're going back to Davis Mills this week after going to Kyle Allen for a couple of weeks, which it made no sense to begin with. Now Davis Mills, he's capable of making, a couple of plays, but it's just not going to be enough to hang within this game. And this is a game where I'm looking for the Cowboys to start fast. I think we talked about this a little bit, after last week's game, just about, this last month of the season is about, kind of fine tuning some different things. And I think one of those things that they can fine tune is just starting off fast in the first half and not necessarily waiting into the fourth quarter like they did Sunday or the second half against the Giants to get things rolling and kind of put a team away.
Yeah, absolutely. And one area they've really struggled is up front. Probably the only source of legitimate offense they have at this point is Dameon Pierce, their rookie running back, who's going to be a really good player, I think.
Really good.
But up front, so Laramie Tunsil is an outstanding tackle. Outstanding. He's currently the Texans left tackle, if you didn't already know. But one of our draft darlings, Kenyon Green, is a Houston Texan, and he has really struggled. He's been put through a little bit of a gauntlet, but he has really struggled. He's somebody that, I think Dallas is going to, go after the interior of this Texans offensive line. I think that's one place they can be beat and one place they can be had, because, Laramie Tunsil is just awesome at left tackle. He's probably the best player on the Texans overall right now. So, there's a lot of areas Dallas can attack them. I think this is going to be a really good week to, with their lack of weapons on the outside, especially with Brandon Cooks being out. I think this is going to be a really good week to sort of ease Kelvin Joseph in as he's going to have to step up. We've been really negative about Kelvin Joseph. He's really, really struggled, and he's been a pretty big disappointment of a second-round pick so far. But now it's time to find out about Kelvin Joseph, and this is a good week to sort of get himself right and get himself set up against a very weak Texans pass catching group, where I think we're going to be able to learn a little bit about Kelvin Joseph, and then we're really going to have to get going here as we get into the Jaguars, who have some pretty solid receivers, and then obviously the Eagles, who have Devontae Smith and AJ Brown. So I think this is going to be I feel like this game against the Texans is coming at a really good time for the Cowboys secondary, where they have a week where they're playing a really bad team, where they can sort of figure out what they have now with Anthony Brown and Jordan Lewis lost for the season. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I think this is kind of what I've enjoyed about the way this schedule has kind of unfolded, because this stretch of 3 weeks against the Colts, Texans, and Jaguars is kind of lined up perfectly kind of for where they're at in the season, being able to get some young guys in there. Damone Clark, we've talked about him at length about, his emergence, and he's making a play every single week. Deron Bland got in there, made 2 interceptions last week. Now it's time for Kelvin Joseph to step up and show some of that second round talent and show just his commitment to football, and, let his talent take over, because right now it has been a situation where he has not lived up to expectations. Seems like every time that he steps onto the field, a big play is right behind it with him involved in it. But like I said, this weekend is a weekend. If he doesn't play well this weekend, I don't have a lot of hope for him for the rest of
Yeah.
this season. So I mean, it's a big moment, I think, for a lot of guys. I think even on the we're gonna get to the offense in a minute, but just kind of piggybacking on that point about a get right game. This would be a perfect game to get Tyler Smith at left guard, and get him some extensive work over there. But overall, for the defense, this in the secondary, definitely Kelvin Joseph is a name to watch and a guy that I'm going to have my eyes on, just to make sure he's not allowing any of these big plays that have kind of hampered him through his first 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Cowboys have brought in some guys to the Cowboys have brought in some guys to sort of help things out in terms of Kendall Sheffield, Mackenzie Alexander. They have some guys for depth. I'm not saying they're the solutions or anything, but they brought in some people. We'll see where it goes. But yeah, the secondary is definitely a concern going forward. And honestly, the biggest thing for me is obviously get the win, but they got to get out of this game healthy too. With the Eagles game coming up, that's going to be the game of the season, truthfully. So we'll see how this all plays out. But yeah, this feels like a game where if Dallas gets an early lead, they're really going to be able to tee off on Davis Mills and get after him, because the Texans, they're kind of their only play really is to just run the ball and run the ball and run the ball, and hopefully you can keep the game within 1 to 2 possessions, and maybe they have a chance in the fourth quarter. I think that's going to be their best play offensively, because I don't think they're really going to be able to beat Dallas through the air, because they if they try and do that, the Dallas pass rush is just going to tee off.
Yeah, and I think if you kind of look at Damian Pierce's numbers throughout the season, his last 3 weeks, I mean, he's rushed for 8 yards, and then he did get 73 against Cleveland. But the majority of his struggles have been just because they've just been getting absolutely demolished, and playing from behind, like you touched on a little bit earlier. So, his numbers have taken a decline. I don't expect the Texans to hang around long enough to be able to really establish him, unless, the Cowboys have some of those, turnovers that can kind of creep up sometimes, or just penalties kind of set the Houston Texans up with field position or whatever the case is. It's going to have to take a lot of work for them to be able to establish Damian Pierce, although he is a really, really talented player. But yeah, it's just, I don't really see him being a factor, and you can kind of see his production dwindling as the season goes on and as they get less competitive. And then as you get to this last month of the season, these teams are ready to go. Like, these being 1-10-1 is not fun for players. You touched on Brandon Cooks kind of checking out after he didn't get traded at the trade deadline. These players are in off-season mode, and it's not going to be hard for them to kind of roll out. And you know what? We're going to get through this game. We're talking about the Cowboys staying healthy. I think these guys on Houston are going to want to stay healthy. Like, yo, I'm not going to put my best foot forward out here. Just, we're 1-10-1. The season's over. Just get me to the offseason healthy and kind of go on vacation and do the whole offseason thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is just a situation where, Pierce is not going to be a factor in this game. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of what it is.
Yeah. Again, this just feels like if Dallas is able to get out to any sort of a lead at first. Texans offense is going to have a really, really hard time making this a game. So, with that being said, let's take a look at the Cowboys offense against the Texans defense. Then we'll do predictions and we'll get on out of here. Because I know you and I both have busy Friday afternoons. I know you've
Absolutely.
we've got a lot of stuff on our plate at the moment.
We're
So
squeezing it in.
yeah, exactly. Just getting it in on a Friday afternoon. So, the Cowboys offense here, this feels like the Texans have obviously been terrible against the run. But the Texans defense is coming off a week in which they played really well against the Browns. Browns won that game 24-7, I believe, maybe 24-14. I forget the final score, but that's a very deceptive score. I believe the Browns 3 touchdowns. One was a punt return. The other was a pick six, and the other was a strip sack that was returned. So the Browns didn't score a single offensive touchdown last week with Deshaun Watson against this Texans defense. So they played well last week, but the Dallas offense is much better than the Browns offense. The Dallas offense is in fantastic form right now. I believe they scored 40 plus, I want to say, in 4 of the 5 games since Dak's been back, maybe more. I know they're averaging about 37 points a game since Dak has come back. They've been near the top of the league in just about every offensive category since Dak has come back. The offense is on a roll, and obviously, huge part of it is Dak Prescott, but the run game has been terrific since Dak's returned. I think the threat of Dak attacking downfield is, it's opened so much more for this run game, and we've seen Tony Pollard really take off. We've really seen Ezekiel Elliott take off. This feels like a game where I'm not expecting huge numbers out of Dak. I think Dak will play well. This just feels like a huge day on the ground for Dallas. Oh, you're muted, Corey.
All right, we're back. But no, I think this is a game where Dak Prescott, we're going to see like a modest effort, like 20 of 24, like 200 yards, 2
Yeah.
touchdowns, hopefully no interception, something like that. But like you said, where this game is going to be won and where I think the production is really going to kind of show is going to be in the ground. I wouldn't be surprised to see, one of those days where both Pollard and Zeke go over 100 yards, something along those lines, where they just really just have a huge day on the ground and just really just get out of the game. Like you said, we're trying to get out of here healthy. This is a team that the Cowboys have no business being in a competitive game with. And I think the kind of business-like attitude that we've seen, some of the quotes, even regarding just Odell this week, this team is ready for business, and they see the bigger picture. And I love the quote from DeMarcus Lawrence when he was asked, if he really wanted Odell there, where he was just like, if we're just gonna do the circus, no, I don't want him here. I'm trying to get to the Super Bowl, and I think that we're gonna have business like mindset for this team to kind of go out here and take care of business. But like I said, it's not going to be a huge day in the air. This is going to be a ground game, and I think this might be one of those games where you get to an end of the game where we're just trying to get certain guys touches like touchdowns. So we might see, if Pollard scores one early, we might make sure Zeke gets one later, and then CD might get involved a little later. Just kind of spread the wealth, and that's kind of one thing I've enjoyed about this team, especially over the past few weeks, is just it's been a collective effort on offense. I mean, Gallup's contributed, CD Lamb stepped up, Schultz has gotten back in the fold, Zeke, Pollard, Dak. I mean, just all of these guys, Ferguson, Hendershot. It's just so many guys, and when you listen to some of these guys, these national media members talk, and why this Cowboys team could be different. That's what a lot of these guys point to, is that just the balance that this team has on offense. They can beat you in multiple ways. And then, we've already talked at length about the defense. So, but yeah, this is going to be a great game, I think, to watch for fans. And I think we're going to be having a lot of fun Sunday afternoon. I'm glad it's a noon game. Get this over with.
Yeah.
Get the
I love that it's a noon game.
Yeah, get the out of here, and so we don't really have to spend too much time on it. But yeah, this is going to be, I think, a fun game, and a game where the offense should be able to have a lot of success.
Yeah, we've established how good this run game's been. The offensive line has been, they're not very great at protecting, but they can really run the ball. And I think that the pass protection is going to get an upgrade here in a couple weeks when Tyron Smith steps in at left tackle and we get Tyler Smith in at left guard like we'd always planned. So I'm excited to see what we get out of this offense on Sunday. And I'm really excited to see what we get out of the pass catchers, because this feels like a day where, if they're up a lot, they're going to be able to get James Washington some work. And maybe, Michael Gallup continues to look healthier. And I'm really excited for just the continued ascent of CeeDee Lamb. He's really, proved some of the doubters wrong, and he's become the wide receiver one we hoped he could be. He's in the top 10 just about any receiving category. He's just been a very consistent, like he doesn't have, I think he only has 1 or 2 games over 100 yards, but he's a consistent 50 to 60 yards a
50s,
week.
yep.
And that's all you can ask for out of a wide receiver one. I don't know how high he ranks in that like elite receiver tier, but he's proven himself to be a really solid number one. And now it's about finding some more consistency behind him and Gallup, because Gallup's looked better and better. And now, Noah Brown's makes plays every now and then. Now we'll see what we have in James Washington, who I'm not super optimistic on. He's been able to, kind of be a deep threat guy, but I'm not super optimistic about what James Washington will bring. But we'll get our first taste of it on Sunday, and we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, and then one other thing I'm looking at here, and then we'll move on to predictions before you give your last thoughts on the offense. Is I'm interested to see how they rotate in on the left side of the offensive line, because we've seen, they've given Jason Peters some snaps at left tackle. They've given Tyler Smith some reps at left guard as they prepare for the return of Tyron Smith. I wonder how much work at left guard that they're going to give Tyler Smith and put Peters at tackle, because I do think Peters could use some reps at tackle just to, get comfortable, because he hasn't played a whole lot there this year. And then I think Tyler Smith needs to get comfortable because, in the most important games of the year, Tyler Smith is going to be at left guard. So it's very important to figure out, what you have and get Tyler Smith comfortable at left guard. Connor McGovern's played admirably for them at left guard, but it's time to move Tyler Smith into guard and really see what they got there. So I think maybe this week I'm expecting them to probably escalate that process of getting Tyler Smith more reps at left guard.
Yeah, absolutely. I think kind of along that same line about, this is a get right game, a game to start fine tuning some things, figure out some stuff that works. And also just one thing, I don't want to see you got to do what you got to do to win the game, obviously, but I don't want us to overextend the playbook. If you
Yeah.
get kind of what I'm saying, like I don't
Don't show
want to
your hand.
start. Yeah, like I want to start. Get your bread and butter plays together. Some plays that you can rely on. But I don't need to see the trick plays. If you have a package for Turpin, I don't really need to see that this week. But one thing I am kind of curious to see is the James Washington. I'm kind of excited to kind of see what he can bring in this first game. Like you said, I'm not my expectations aren't super high on him, but I do kind of want to see what he looks like out there on the field. I know his excitement levels through the roof. I want to see if he can make 1 or 2, big plays during this game, or show something that, oh, like maybe it's another dimension here. We talk about the balance on offense. Maybe we're adding another dimension here to it. So that's just a small thing that I'm looking forward to. And then, like you said, I want to see definitely the offensive line kind of start kind of rotating and kind of get into kind of playoff form or down the stretch form, and make sure we're getting guys reps where they need to get reps at, and get them comfortable in those type of situations. And yeah, that's really it I have for the offense. That's what I'm looking forward to. Aside just from the running game, Zeke and Pollard has been, one of my favorite things to watch this season. Just kind of how they're playing off each other, and just how Zeke has really accepted that, that role. It feels like he's really embracing having
Yeah.
Tony Pollard there. And I think it's led the coaches to, be more comfortable with giving Tony Pollard more plays. And then all Tony Pollard does is go out there and make, a huge play every single week.
All right. Yeah, no, let's I completely agree. And I've really loved what we've seen out of the running game, and it's been fun to see Pollard really, really, really flourish. We haven't gotten to see that yet. So let's do our predictions. Let's get on out of here and get on with our weekends as we enjoy our weekend, and get ready for Cowboys Texans on Sunday. I'll do mine first. This just feels like a game where Dallas runs them out of the stadium early, and we maybe get some Cooper Rush and some Malik Davis in the fourth quarter. I just don't see how the Texans really slow down the Dallas offense, and I just don't think they're going to be able to keep up with Dallas once they do start scoring. So I'll say I'll say 35-13 Dallas. How about that?
Okay, I like that prediction. For me, I am going to say it's going to be. I think the Cowboys are really going to come out and really put their foot down on Houston in the first half. I think they're hearing a lot of that talk about, oh, we're slow starters, and
Yeah.
I think they're sick of that. So I'm going to say they come out, put up damn near a 30 piece in the first half, and then kind of coast in the second half. So I think we're gonna look at a final score of like 37 to. I'm gonna give the Houston Texans 9 points, but I think it's
Okay.
gonna be a stretch for them to get to those 9 points. But it's
Okay.
definitely gonna be a very, very comfortable win, and it's gonna be tough for Houston to really get anything sustained on offense. So yeah,
Yeah.
37-9 is what I'm gonna predict.
I feel like all year you and I have been pretty much on the same page with our predictions. I feel like you and I think very similarly about the Cowboys, and
Absolutely.
that's why I enjoy doing the show so much. So, unless you got anything else, let's get on out of here and let's enjoy our weekends. And again, get ready for Cowboys Texans on Saturday. And I know this is a Cowboys podcast, but I'm also getting ready for Mizzou, Kansas at 4:15 on Saturday. So I'm gonna have to get to there to get into the student section a few hours before tip off, unfortunately. So most of my Saturday's booked up, but
Yes,
I'm
absolutely.
I'm excited for the weekend. So it'll be a good time. Hopefully, I get to cap off the weekend with the Cowboys win. So, again, thank you guys for listening. Make sure to check out everything at the Dallas Sports Fanatic at DallasSportsFanatic.com, our Twitter page at Cowboys News 365 at Dallas_Fanatic. You can get us on Instagram at DAL Cowboys Fanatic. You can get me on Twitter at Nate_Sanch77. You can get Corey on Twitter at the Mr. Douglas with 2 S's. Thank you guys for listening to the Silver and Blue podcast presented by the Dallas Sports Fanatic, and we will talk to you next time.